Preparing foods for the freezer takes a lot of time every spring, and sometimes we wonder why we're doing it. And then unfortunately, a lot of people spend so much time at it, they don't really want to take it out because it's sort of a prize they want to keep there throughout the winter and the next summer. But we do need to rotate the foods out. Vegetables that go into the freezer should be used within 1 year for maximum nutrition and maximum quality. Today we're going to prepare a product called from the Meals in Minutes cookbook. This particular one is a vegetable mix. Now you can get this at your county extension office. It's C3306. It is a charge publication, so you may want to take your 50 cents in with you when you go to pick it up. The particular one I mentioned is the vegetable mix. Now this is very easy. It uses some vegetables fresh and some frozen. I'm going to make half the recipe so that if you're following along, if you already have that cookbook, take that into account. We have about 1 pound of fresh or frozen green beans cut, and these you notice are frozen. Now normally we don't want to thaw foods and refreeze them because it will lower quality, but because we're incorporating this into a dish, the quality will be all right. Now to that we're adding 1 cup of carrots, chopped up. These are fresh carrots in this case, but you could use frozen if you had those in your freezer. 1 cup of fresh or frozen peas, and 1 cup of frozen corn in this case. Now, to that we're going to add about 1/8 of a teaspoon of garlic powder, and the salt is optional in this depending on what you're going to use with it later. We've got about 1/2 tablespoon or 1½ teaspoons in there, and then we're also going to add about 3 cups of water. Now this is then just going to go onto the heat, and we're going to bring it to a boil. Now what we're accomplishing in this case, since the carrots have not been frozen in the past, and we're eventually going to put this back into the freezer, is we're going to blanch the carrots. We want to cook it long enough so that we just cook the outside of them, parboil them a little bit, bring it to a boil, and then we'll add the cabbage, which also will then be blanched, so that the enzymes in them will be deactivated and we'll get longer quality, keeping a better flavor, and the product will taste better and have better nutrition overall. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the stove now. Once you have your mix to a boil, it simply matters at that point in time of adding the cabbage to it, stirring it in a little bit, and this is about 1/2 of a small head of cabbage, and bringing it back to a boil just long enough to blanch the cabbage. At that point we'll want to stop the cooking right away because we don't want to overcook, or that will cause an off flavor simply from the cooking too much when it goes into the freezer. Well, then put it in the pan, lower it into a dish of ice water so the cooking will stop very, very quickly. Try to have your ice water ready, or get it ready as you're letting the cabbage come to a boil in with the other ingredients. We do want this to cool down as fast as possible. Now I'm going to, for our time here today, assume that this has had a chance to cool down, swirl it around a little bit so that the cold comes away from it. And we're going to go ahead and pack it into the jars or the containers. Make sure that you use a container that is designed for freezing. If you're using the wrong type of container, there's going to be moisture or vapor pass through, and you're going to have a loss of quality. Primarily, you're going to have, the food is going to dry out, and you get what we call freezer burn, which I think a lot of people are familiar with on meat, but not so many of us are familiar with when it comes to vegetables. Also, try to divide the broth amongst the ingredients or amongst the containers so that you have plenty to go over each one. Fill it as much as you can, with leaving about, 1/2 inch to 1 inch of a headspace, depending on what size of container you're using, so that you have time for the expansion during the freezing process. If you're not going to fill it up all the way, then you might want to crumple up some wax paper to put over it so that there is as little air left in that container as possible when the freezing is complete. Also, make sure that you label each of your containers so that you know what is in it, so that when you use it later you don't have to guess. If you can package it in the size of containers that you know you're going to need per meal, for instance, we're going to use a vegetable soup that requires 3 cups of the vegetable mix, then if you can package it in a 3-cup container, then you have the amount that you need when you're ready to use it. Next week, as I said, we're going to try a vegetable soup using the mix to make a meal in a minute, or almost a minute. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.